Coming to our next speaker is a front-end engineer at Razorpay. Smile Gupta is ardent by nature, who loves to learn new things and is always ready to face new challenges in the journey of life. She's a versatile and multi-talented young tech aspirant who's carrying 4 years of prolific experience in learning and teaching varied technologies. I would like to invite Smile Gupta, who will be sharing her insights and experiences on serverless, a front-end developer's foot into the cloud. All yours, Smile.
Thank you so much for a warm welcome. So I'll share my screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi everyone. Thank you so much to the team of ACD for giving me an opportunity to present at AWS Community Day South Asia Virtual Edition 2021. So let's start. So today's session is all about like how I started being a front-end engineer, how I started into cloud, how serverless helped me in kickstarting my journey in cloud. Like since I come from a background of front end where I don't add any context about what servers are and things on those lines, how I quickly became a full stack dev using serverless. So before moving ahead, I wanted to share some three stories of three individuals I know. The first story is about Meera. She's a front-end developer, and today, after seeing like Twitter, LinkedIn, everybody getting upskilled on full stack development, backend, she had a FOMO and she was very curious. How should I get started with backend? Another story is of Naren. He's a fourth year college student and he has some knowledge about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But it happens, right? Whenever we approach to placement officers, they suggest us to have one end-to-end project in your application, in your resume. How will he do it with very less knowledge? And the third story is of Kalindi. She is a normal individual who actually wanted to get started on backend development. So all these three people come from different backgrounds and have different motives to get into cloud. But what is something that can help all three in kickstarting their cloud journey? The one simple answer is serverless. Serverless is something that helps not only a front-end engineer but a college student or any individual who wants to kickstart their journey in cloud very effortlessly. So let's talk about that. Before I proceed to the next slides, you should know who am I. So I work as a front-end engineer in Razorpay. I am a AWS community builder. Along with that, I am a community organizer at AWS User Group Tirupati, and I also host Serverless Saturdays at last Saturday. And apart from that, I am something that is not mentioned in these slides. I am a very novice to the cloud. I am a front-end engineer by heart, by profession, and by all means. But serverless is something that always, tracks me towards going into cloud. And by the end of the session, I'll show you how anybody, especially a front-end engineer, can leverage serverless. So when I heard about the term serverless for the very first time, I was like, it's like some time back, like 6, 7 months back. I was thinking, how come anybody can deploy something without servers? As in the term serverless said, no servers. And I was like, oh wow, I was never knew that. Like I heard about AI ML, they are very advanced. But is it possible to deploy anything without servers or have a backend without servers? But it's a myth. Serverless is not actually like you don't have to maintain the server. It's not like you there is no server, but it's like you don't have to maintain the server, and your cloud provider, say AWS, takes care of the deployment and stuff. So if I talk about the simple definition of serverless, it states that serverless architecture refers to application that significantly depends on third-party services known as backend as a service or BaaS. Don't you think it's a very difficult definition? Let me tell you in very simple words from like last 2 minutes I'm saying about serverless. So what is actually serverless? So serverless is like, if I have to put into in very simple words, say you are a developer, you have deployed, you have coded your application say in Django and Python, and now you want to host it. What you have to do in the ideal scenario when like in a traditional way. First thing is that you have to create your own server. Then the next thing is that we have to write some code for the server. Then we have to deploy our server, and in the end, we have to maintain the server. But don't you think it's a long way? And to grab all these things, to make a server, deploy the server, you have to learn a lot of things. Should have a lot of knowledge about backend, how servers work, then what is load balancing, things on those lines. So, what happens in serverless is you don't need to take care of all these things. Just you need your code and all the dependency you have to provide. Okay, these are all the dependencies that are required by my code base, and rest your cloud provider or AWS or say serverless do everything, and you don't need to worry about anything. So yeah, with serverless in your to-do list apart from code, there is nothing. So let me tell you one more example, just to tell how serverless is different and special in comparison to physical servers or say virtual servers. Say an example of cars. Okay, we take a car. We generally buy a car to commute to our offices. Say I got a car, like you have to spend like 10 lakhs, 15,000, 15 lakhs to get a decent car. Then with this pricing, we have to do some maintenance, then we have to pay for some on-road price. There is one option that I'll get the car just with EMI or I'll directly pay. So there is a lot of heavy investment involved. And with that, what happens is whenever we commute, right? Generally, say I took a car just to commute to office, or maybe go out with my friends over the weekend and things on those lines. So what happens with that is we go to office and the entire day our car is standing idle in the office, or maybe now since it's been 2 years, the pandemic is there. We rarely go out, or we go out on a very occasional basis. We have paid a lot of amount, but we are not actually consuming it at its fullest extent. These are physical servers. Like we make our own investment, and on top of it we use it whenever we want. Another thing about the second thing came was virtual server, right? So what happened with virtual server was, so basically what happens in virtual machines, we it's like just like Zoom car. We rent the car and we use it whenever we want to. But say I have rented a car, I came to office again for 9 to 5, or it's not used, or maybe I rented a car to go out on a vacation with my friends. I reached to say destination one, say Goa. We planned a trip to Goa, and we reached Goa. There our car is useless, or we are not using it, and it's staying in the hotel in the night and things on those lines. Still, we are not using it to fullest extent. Then there is something called a Ola or Uber service. So whenever we want to go, we don't have to do any maintenance, and simply we call Ola Uber whenever it's required, and they drop us and the work is done. That is serverless. That is how, there is no maintenance, nothing. Just you have to pay like how much you have used, and you just don't need to take care of anything. That's what code. You just take care of the code in serverless. So with the advent of technology, what happens is now abstraction started happening. Like in physical servers, we have to maintain about hardware, OS, runtime code, and for VNs, like hardware, we have to not take care of, but OS, runtime, and code was there. In containers, hardware and OS is not required, but still we have to take care of runtime and code. And in serverless, we just need to take care of the code. So in short, my point here is, like, if I am a front end engineer, I have to get started with earlier with backend, full stack deploying applications. Earlier it had a lot to do. Or now, if we use physical server approach or VM approach or containers approach, we have a lot to do, and we require some background knowledge. But with serverless, we don't require anything except the knowledge of our code. So now why? Now, okay, we agree that in serverless we have to take care of our own code. But then it's fine. Okay, if say I think, okay, I'm getting into this field of full stack development, so I should know all these things, right? But there are another a lot of advantages that comes with serverless. One simple example I can give you is that, say I have a business and I do crafts, and the people reach out to me, say on birthdays, anniversaries, or they reach out to me on Diwali festivals. On an average, I have like 5-6 people visiting my application, but on Diwali, Dussehra, any other festivals, thousands of people come. So what if I have to do investment in my own physical servers? So what is that? I have to be prepared for 1,000 people, right? But rest of the time it will be idle. So that is again one good advantage. We don't need to learn about how to balance the loads, how it automatically scales up and scales down. So that is one more advantage. We have to not learn about these things, and we can prefer serverless. And the third thing is that, which I prefer, is that fault tolerance. Sometimes, your servers get down. You have to know how to debug it, what to do. You should be ready with a backup and things on those lines. But with serverless, all these things are taken care by your cloud service provider. And the last but not the least, the very good part is you only pay for how much you are utilizing. You will never pay for when our machine or the servers are not being used. So that were my reasons why I chose with serverless. Now, the thing is that I mentioned I am a novice in cloud. Only I know little about serverless, and AWS is something that have grabbed my interest with the full stack development. But how did I even start it? Don't you think front-end engineers don't have a lot of context about what is backend and how to have user management and things on those lines? So how did I start it? So I started with the help of AWS Amplify. So what is basically a AWS Amplify? See, whenever we want to go into some domain which we have no prior knowledge about, so we should start with something. So how did I start it? See, if I would have started in an old conventional way, I would have to say I am into MERN. Okay, so with MERN we have to take care of learn Node.js. It's JavaScript only, but we have to learn about Express, and we have to see how MongoDB works, and there are a lot of things to get started. And then we should have been taking care of how we'll deploy our application. Do we need to use maybe something called Heroku, or maybe we have to kick with cloud and things on those lines. So there were a lot of points which I have to cover up if I want to go to full stack. But then I heard about a tool called AWS Amplify. This is basically a service where we use CLI commands to get started. Let me show you what I did. So initially I started with AWS Amplify. So this is the documentation. This is specifically if you're a front-end engineer, or maybe if you know a little about it, if you know HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React. So you can use this tutorial. And what happens is it's a CLI-based tool where we simply install the things, and it helps us in understanding what are the various concepts and what are the various services of serverless we can leverage. I'll give you an example. So there is a service called Appsync. Okay, whenever we wanted, so we know that there are two kind of APIs predominantly used. One is this REST APIs. The other one are GraphQL APIs. What if we wanted to use the GraphQL APIs? Since to build a GraphQL backend, it's a little difficult in comparison to REST-based APIs. So there is a service called Appsync, which helps us in creating a GraphQL based backend. So it talks about how we can initialize the backend. It's basically just CLI questions, and we just answer them based upon our choice. So one thing I learned from using Amplify is that, okay, if I someday wanted to build with the GraphQL based APIs, I can use Appsync. Then the next difficult thing that comes into any developer's mind is when they want to kickstart with the backend is that user management, because user management, authorization, authentication, these are a lot of things which are very tricky, and people take support of say OAuth to do these things. So there is a service in AWS that is called Cognito. So then after going through this documentation, I learned about, so okay, there is a service called this Cognito for authentication and authorization purpose. And then my authentication authorization also done. So whenever we'll get started with Amplify, right? So what happens is it asks us the CLI option if you want to go with some template. So initially I started with the template. It automatically created a table using DynamoDB. Okay, by seeing the schema, I learned about this is how DynamoDB is. So, and then next thing was deployment. So what we can generally use for deployment, either we can use serverless or maybe we can use S3 also for deploying. So the next step in this tutorial, I learned about how I can host my application using S3. So, in a nutshell, what happened is I learned about the services. Say, I learned about Cognito, DynamoDB, Appsync, Amplify, and S3 using the simple documentation that AWS Amplify CLI tool. Now, why I preferred AWS Amplify CLI tool? See, I'll be honest here. If I would have to be get started with all these things via a manual approach, I have to just read about DynamoDB, Amplify, Appsync, S3 in separate. Okay, but it's like I believe in a fact that when you are starting something very new, we tend to learn a lot of things by hands-on experience. And if I go into directly into the theory of DynamoDB, AppSync, Amplify, it will make me a little scared. And it's again like just starting with the earlier approach, with the merge stack approach, just reading about DynamoDB and AppSync and things on those lines. So the first thing I did was that started reading about AWS Amplify, and I created a to-do app using the Amplify. Then, while going through that documentation, since it was a React app, I understood all the concepts of authorization, authentication with the flow, and by reading the documentation, and I understood about all these services. Then later on, after my first project was completed, what I did, then I started exploring more into Lambda functions, and I tried creating projects out of it. And I created 5 practice projects, and then later on, I started attending a lot of meetups and reading blogs, and that's how I developed my interest in serverless. Okay, so just to sum up, so these are some services. If you are a front-end engineer or you're just starting with the cloud, or maybe if you want to have some amazing projects for your resume, what you can pick up is that you can read about S3. S3 is basically helps in maybe storing images, storing files, or maybe helps in deployment. You can do everything with S3. You can even have the database in S3 also. Then we can if we should know about Lambda functions. Basically, it's like how we compute our code. We can compute using lambdas. And then Amplify, I showed you, like it's like a quickest tool that helps you in making and getting started if you are a front end and mobile apps. Then DynamoDB, that is a database, that is a database. And then this is NoSQL database. Then we have Appsync if we are interested in building with some things related to what we say GraphQL, right? So we can use Appsync, and it helps us even creating subscriptions. I have also created one application that was basically a chat application. You just adding what we call the schema or the table structure. I just made a table structure, and my quiz chat application was ready with that. Then last but not the least, Cognito. Why Cognito? See, if we wanted to do that user management with say auth, right, it's a lot trickier. But with Cognito, it's like it takes 1 hour to set up both front end and back end, and here you go. It's like when you open it, AWS Cognito, you can check it out. You just have to enter all the options, whatever you want to require in your user pool, and it's done. And also, it helps you to create your authenticated APIs. So these are some services. So after that, I'll show you one of my projects. I use these services, and my first serverless application was done. So I built an image doc. Let me give you its demo. So basically, this is the application. So what I did with this is, so basically, what this application do, that is, it uploads its images. So what you can do that is, so I've added an option for uploading images, and so if you click on this plus button and choose the file, so let me choose the image, and I'll upload it. What it does, it gives back me a shareable link. So though it's a simple application, what it has advantages a lot. So what happens is, when I work, sometimes I had to add some pictures in my project. One way is that I can upload it directly in the project only. I can add it in the project directory only. But I like in a way that I wanted a URL for my images. And before I made this application, what I tend to use that is, I would have been uploading these images to some random website, and there I would have getting the shareable URL. So now some then this was so this was my first application, because I every day use images, so I wanted something where I upload my images and get back the URL. And that's how I, since there are two approaches, we can have this. So we can directly upload to S3 buckets also, and we can do the same thing via API also. So I have since I wanted to kickstart it with backend also, so I've used the second approach. So what I do that is, I upload the image, I convert it into base 64, and then the same that same blob I pass into the API, and that API that I built using Lambda Functions. So what that API did it, the API will return me a URL that I am displaying here. So that is one thing I did, and I have added some sort of user management to it. So if we do that, we have to introduce sign up, then verification of emails, then sign in process, then forget password. It would be a very much hassle when we go into some other ways. So that is why I use the Cognito here. So let me quickly log in. So what I did inside that, what happens is, if you are logged in, you can create your albums within. So how did I do that? I used something called DynamoDB. So that was the database I used in this application, and on the database, I was storing all these APIs are authenticated. So if you're not logged in, you will not be able to see this. How it was like making authenticated APIs and unauthenticated APIs is again a trick. But with Cognito, we can just simply pass the token, and our APIs become authenticated. So this is and with the database, how it used is like to which images are there in which collection of the user. That is something taken care with this. Uh, sorry, DynamoDB. And last but not the least, since these were REST APIs, so Appsync was not needed, and and that's how I did that. So let me go to its what we called architectural diagram. So what happens is, And there are four things I've used. One is Cognito, as I explained, for user management purposes. Then next thing is that see, Lambda functions we have used for computation. Then so what happens is whenever you work, right, sometimes it happens that we need some monitoring tools. So I used CloudWatch to log if there are any errors in the application, and to store images I've used S3. I have created a API and not directly send the things to the bucket. Um, and then I have used something called DynamoDB, that is a data store, just to make sure, okay, which user, which album is associated with which user. And last but not the least, API gateway to connect it to frontend. So yeah, these are some services I leveraged, and it's like if I have to compare it with the approach, if we have to, do with maybe servers, so we have to spin up some EC2 instance, and we have to create do something again with the user management part, and for logging we have to take care of any other service and things on those lines. So everything happens in a nutshell using Lambda functions. And to be honest, I did not require any prior knowledge. These things were after reading one simple Amplify doc and making a play application, these things actually made more sense to me. And the second thing is that with applications, it's all about how much you practice and how much you gel with all the things. So yeah, in the end, I can say that is things become very easy with serverless, and instead of managing servers. With servers, we have to do a lot of things, and serverless doesn't mean, in a nutshell, that there are no servers. The servers are there, but we don't need to maintain them. So yeah, these are all I had for this presentation. So you can use this QR code to have the presentation, and in the end, in the next slide, I have added some bonus resources where you can get started with these things.
All right. That was an amazing session, Smile. Thank you so much. We'll be moving forward with questions. So I have a couple of questions for you. So the first question is, you are a front-end engineer, front-end developer. So what is your day-to-day software engineering work at Razorgate?
So it's more like, so I work in the payments team in here in Razorpay. So looking into the checkout widget, which we all see during the transactions. So working with that, like if there are any issues faced by merchants, resolving them, or any, there is some issue they come while configuring that same checkouts that I help in, and some things here and there in and around payments.
All right, that sounds great. I hope, I mean, it sounds like really engaging work. All right, so just another question. Since there's a lot of college students also in this audience, how do you think you update yourself on new technologies on a daily basis? I mean, a regular
Coming,
basis.
sorry, can you just repeat your question?
Yeah, so I was saying that how do you update yourself on a daily, I mean, on a regular basis with new technologies, since every day we have something new coming up, right?
Yeah, so what I generally prefer and do that is I follow Twitter a lot, and what happens in Twitter is a lot of people post about new things what are launching. So, say I follow React, the Next.js, so I do follow these handles, and then I follow a lot of senior developers who works in the same React, then serverless, and say XJS. So on these lines, I follow them. They do post if their new releases comes, and I do read, you know that change logs when new things come. So that's how I keep myself updated.
All right, that is clearly very helpful. All right, we have another question from Mohammed Javed. Where is the front end of the image doc running?
Okay, so again, I've used Route 53 of what we called in AWS, and using that with S3, I have connected, I have deployed it via serverless to a S3 bucket, and then I have added with Route 53 a subdomain to it, and I mapped it.
All right, that is Oh, we have another question from him as well. Can you please share the API code?
Yes, I have added the same in the presentation, so you can have a look into that.
All right, that's great. Okay, so we've already seen a lot of people entering the quiz for your session. I think, all right, so I think we'll be moving on. And there's a lot of questions again on YouTube. You could take them offline if you want. And I'm sure they'll be loving to hear back from you. Thank you so much, Smile. That was an amazing session. Wonderful to meet with you again. I'll be handing over the mic to Angel.
Build, 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 go, go, build, 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 go, 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 build, go 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 build. There is no compression algorithm for experience. Def and test, def and test, def and test are the most important workloads. Dance like nobody's watching. 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 Encrypt like everyone is. There has never been a better time to build. 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 There has never been a better time to build. You build it. You run it. 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 You build. You run it. You build. You run it. You build. You run it. You run it.